Hi everyone, welcome back. So earlier on today I did a video that was about the pendant part of this set. So I made the pendant using a lava bead right there, and what I want to do in this video is show you how to make the matching earrings. So what I've done is I've already started by making one. But I haven't finished it off yet, because obviously you only need to see me make one and then you make two exactly the same and you'll get your set. So what I'm going to do is put that aside for now. I'm going to make this one earring and then I'm going to finish the two off and show you the whole set. So what you're going to need is the beads. So I've got another lava bead left here, which is a little 8mm lava bead. To finish off the set, and I decided to do mine in silver, but you can do any colour you like, and we're doing it with 20 gauge wire and 26 gauge wire. And then I have 4 tools that I generally use all the time, and that is my flat-nosed pliers, my cutters, my needle-nosed pliers, and my round-nosed pliers. I don't necessarily use the round ones in this one actually, so I just have them there just in case. They can be handy, but you might not need them. So I am going to make this one earring and then finish the two off and show you the set. So when we were making the pendant, which you can flip over and watch at some point, when we were making the pendant, we used 15 wraps down one side and 15 down the other. When I'm making the earrings, I like them to be just a little bit shorter. So if I move these back in, you can see I've made the earrings before I've finished, where you can see the finishing bit slightly shorter than the pendant. And I just think that it looks prettier, slightly nicer than doing them both the same length. And it's up to you really, if you want to do them the same length, but I just think they look a bit better. So what we did with our pendant is we needed to measure a certain amount of wire. With this, you don't need quite as much, so I'm going to go with 18 centimetres, and I'm just going to cut this off to make our earrings. 26 gauge is what we use to wrap with, and the 20 gauge is what we use for the longer piece, of the lengths of wire. If you want to learn more about gauges, there's a video about that too, which I can pop a link in for you. It's fairly interesting with the gauges of wire. As they go up in numbers, they go down in size. So just try and pick the right ones for you. I generally use 20 and 26 all the time because it's delicate, it looks pretty. Thicker wire is a little bit chunkier, but it depends on what you want it for. Thicker wire is probably good for bracelets. But I am going to begin with our earrings. So we start off, we want to do, so what I've done is 15 on the pendant, and what I'm going to do is 12 on the earrings. So as long as they're an even amount either side, doesn't really matter how many you do. It's just what I've chosen because I think that it looks the nicest. And what we're going to do is what I call my 2-4 method, which is probably completely made up, but it makes sense to me, where we start off by doing 2 wraps around the 2 wires, and then we do 4 wraps around the wire furthest away from you. So we do that 12 times until we get to where we want to add the bead. So I am going to do that for you now, do our 12 wraps, and then I will get back to you. So there will be a timestamp in the descriptions below to jump you to the bit where I add the bead if you already know how to do this bit, or you can watch the whole thing and learn how to do it that way. I keep pushing things down with my fingers because we want it to be really neat. With this set, you can't really get away with imperfections, because it's just it's a very simple weave, and it's very obvious if you make any mistakes. So it's good just to practice this weave, get it nice and neat, make sure you're pushing it down all the time and keeping it nice and straight. So I'm doing my 4 around the back, the furthest away from me, and 2 around all of the 2. And I'll just keep going like that until I've done 12. Stopping occasionally just to push it down, keep it all nice and neat. Sometimes I find it hard to see, so you might see me squinting all the time. I'm trying to see because it's so fine and so thin, I can't actually see how many I've done. Right, so halfway, we've got 6 done. I'm going to keep going till we've got 12. Good thing about this one is you can keep the 26 gauge wire on the reel, so you don't have to guess how much you need to complete it, because you don't have to cut it off or anything. You can just keep going, which is handy. Cramp in my hand. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 4 more to go. So 1, 2. Right, my wire is currently shooting off. I can hear it falling off the reel because sometimes I forget to attach it. So what I do is I get a little bit off the reel and then I just feed it through the loop at the top there, so that it doesn't keep doing that, because it's quite frustrating when it gets all tangled when it shoots off the reel. So sorry for that, bit of a distraction. Here we go, let's carry on. Right, what have we got? So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. You sure? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yes, 11. 1 more to go, and then we are going to add the bead. So there we go. So we've got our 12. And what we need to do is get our flat nosed pliers. The great thing about these is they're completely smooth. They don't have any kinks or lumps on them, which means that when you're flattening the wire, it's not going to leave any marks on them. Some people like to dip their pliers into a solution that kind of almost puts a wax coating onto them, but I find that these are fine. As long as you've got ones that are completely flat and they don't have a pattern on them, then they should be fine to use like this. So I've flattened all that down and I've got my 12, and now what I want to do is slide this one over like this, and we're going to add our little lava bead. I'm going to pop that one on there, and then what I want to do is take the wire and just keep wrapping around and around and around until we've got far enough that it wraps around the bottom end of this bead. So I'm just going to keep going, wrapping around. You can do this quite roughly and then move it down with your fingers, because then it'll be all nice, and or your nails be all nice and tight and fitting together. That's what I say quite often, is make sure that you keep using your fingers to move it down, because you can think that you're doing it really nice and tightly, and when you've finished you end up with all these gaps and it just doesn't look as nice and neat. So wrap this around, move it down. I've still got a little way to go. As you can see, I'm probably about halfway around there. So we'll continue to wrap. Give myself a little bit more wire in a minute. I think that is about right. So if I just check that, yep, we are able to fold that and come back on ourselves, and it's meeting really nice and flushly there. So what I want to do is just sort out my wire, because we've got into a little bit of a tangle and we don't want too many kinks in it. I'm going to give myself a little bit of extra length, I think. And then we can finish this off by doing another 12 up the other side, and then we'll add our earring hooks. So it's nice and flush, it fits nice and flush together. So we start with our 2 around both, like that. I'm going to push it down, make sure it's really nice and close. Oh, you probably can't see that on the board. Let me just move that in. There we go. Use my fingers. And then we will continue as we did on the other side. 4 on the one furthest away from you and 2 on the 2. So I will just keep going with that until I have done 12 again. Now on this side, on the first side, I just waited till I'd finished to use my flat-nosed pliers to flatten it out. But on this side, it can get a little bit twisted, so it's quite a good idea really to just keep bringing them in, flattening it down, making sure that it goes nice and straight all the way up. If you get any kinks and bends in this wire, it's quite obvious because it's such a simple little weave. Nowhere to hide, as I say. Right, I've done 4, that makes it about a third of the way there, doesn't it? Getting there. I'll bring my pliers back in, just keep straightening it, as I said before. You can see the silver wire shimmering. It's really a really pretty wire. Right, let's just keep going. So you can get quicker as you go, but always try and be neat. Sometimes if you speed up too fast, it can get messy, and we don't want that to happen. We are halfway. Me squinting, trying to count how many I've done. It's when you're doing the wrap around one strand of wire, it's really hard to see, and if you forget, I don't think it matters too much if you did an extra one. I don't think anyone's going to notice. But if you're a perfectionist, you don't want that to happen. Right, I'm just going to straighten this out again and then count how many we've got, see how many I've got left to do. You can see we're nearly there. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Right, so we've got 3 more to go, and then we can do the finishing off and add our hooks. Now, I generally buy sterling silver hooks. You can buy cheaper silver hooks, but I think sterling silver are quite good because some people can have allergies. And the sterling silver seems to be quite nice, and they're not too expensive really. But if you're going to make these out of antique bronze or copper and you want to buy the matching colour, just be aware that some people can be allergic to it in their ears. So you might want to warn people that that's what it's made of, and that there's a possibility that if they have sensitive skin, it might not be okay. But generally I've got sensitive skin and this is fine for me. That's why I'm making the silver ones for now. And I've lost count, so I'm going to count again and see how many more we need to do. I might be done, but I'm not sure. Right, another look. With a count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. 1 more to go. Right. Let's do. It can be a bit tough on your fingers. I squeeze so tightly that I actually leave dents in my fingers, just trying to make it all neat, but you get toughened up to it. Right, so that's the 12 on both sides done, which is looking lovely. What I'm gonna do is gonna bring back my other earring, because what I want to do is make sure that I cross over the same one on this one. So what I did, by the looks of it, is I crossed over this one over the top of that one. Now I don't need too much more of this 26 gauge, so I'm going to cut it off here, move it out of the way, and now it's all about just finishing these 2 pairs of earrings off. So bring in our sterling silver hooks there, and this one goes across the top of the other one, and then these shorter pieces I'm just going to wrap around. Now, this is where I use my fingers, which is very silly because this is how you stab yourself. So what I need to do is actually bring in my pliers and bend it around using that. So you've got your 2 shorter pieces that we're going to bend around and hide away, which we've done there. Now I'm just going to make sure that that sits nice and flat. I'm going to bring in my other earring and check it, because they're a pair. Obviously we want them to look as close as possible. I think that's looking pretty good. If I pop them down there so you can see. Now what we want to do is finish them off with our sterling silver hooks. So I'm going to take this front one here, I think, and I'm going to pop my hook onto it, checking that when I've actually finished it's going to hang in the right direction. You see how I've put it with the hook kind of facing me this way, and I'm going to curl the rest of the wire down. And what you want to make sure of is that you're leaving the hook a chance to swing, because when you have earrings dangling, you want them to actually move around a little bit. You don't want them to be tight and rigid and just sit there like that. I don't know if that makes sense, but yeah, you want to make sure that you haven't done it too tight and that they do move around. So I haven't done that quite low enough, so I'm just going to bend that a little bit. I want that to go a bit further down and bend that a bit further down, so we've not got masses left over. Now I've got all this wire here that is too much. There's too much wire left and I don't want it in the way, so I'm going to bend that around a couple of times and then I'm going to cut it off because it's just in the way. So we're going to remove those bits, take our flat nosed pliers and give it a little bit of a squeeze to finish that off. See how this is starting to take shape? We can see that that's going to hang correctly. I've got this little bit of extra wire that I need to now figure out what I'm going to do with. Generally, I'm just going to wrap it around. This isn't one to do, I mean, if you want to, you could do a few curls, I suppose, but this isn't really one to do lots of like curly things on. We're just finishing it off nicely with a few wraps at the top. So now I know I've got enough of that. I can cut that one off. Make sure that it is moving and I haven't squashed it down too low, too hard. And just make sure that all those little ends, sorry, I'd have brought that right up to my face then and you wouldn't be able to see on the board, so we'll go back to the board. I make sure all these little ends are just squashed in as much as they can so that they're not going to catch on anything. And there we've got one of our earrings finished, and I'm just going to do the same thing again with this one. So I'm going to take this one, slide it on so the hook is pointing towards me, and then bend that piece of wire down like that. Again, got these little extras that we don't want. I'm just going to wrap them around. What I'm going to try and do is take a look at my other pair, my other earring, and make sure that they look as similar as they can, and cut off the excess. It's looking really nice and it dangles as I was saying before, and tuck those ones away and squeeze it a bit, and then I've just got that last little bit left over as we did before, and I'm going to wrap that around. This one isn't quite as long, so I don't need to cut it off. I just need to finish it, squeeze that down, and there you've got your lovely pair of earrings. And if I bring in now our little pendant that we made in the last video, there we have our beautiful set. So they're fairly simple, they don't take too long to make. They're a little bit fiddly sometimes, and as I said, you've got to try really hard to be really neat, because with something like this, it's very obvious if you've got gaps and kinks in your wire. So good luck. I would love to hear how it goes if you do try this tutorial, so do comment. I will always answer, and let me know if there's anything else that you want to see. If there's something else you're interested in making, then I will be happy to show you. and I hope you enjoyed. So hit the like button if you did, and subscribe if you want to see more, because I do upload a video a week generally, sometimes more. So keep an eye out for them, and I'll see you again soon.